Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show. Well, happy Thursday there, folks. Brian Nichols here on The Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, and today we have a returning guest. You know him from talking about freedom being nature and constructal law. Well, today we're talking about his brand new book, Why Time Flies and Beauty Never Dies. Dr. Adrian Bejan, welcome back to The Brian Nichols Show.
Thank you, Brian. I'm happy to be back.
So happy to have you, Dr. Adrian Bejan, and thank you for all you've been doing over the past few years here as a part of the Brian Nichols Show, a greater family. You've been on the show, I think now we're going on 3 or 4 times, and every time I've had you on the program, it's the third time, okay, perfect, yeah. Every time I've had you on the show, Dr. Bejan, I have always received bountiful emails from people saying, thank you for having that awesome doctor on the program. I liked learning about constructal law and how, yeah, freedom is nature. I shouldn't be made bad to feel that I like embracing and supporting that crazy little F word, freedom. So, Dr. Bejan, you've been busy in your life here on the side beyond teaching classes at Duke and focusing on, yes, bringing that F word to academia. But as I mentioned in the intro, you just wrote a brand new book, Time and Beauty, Why Time Flies and Beauty Never Dies. Dr. Bejan, fill us in. What led to the culmination of this book today?
Well, several ahas that all of a sudden sounded like only one impression. And the beginning of it is in the title of the book. In the secondary title, there is a common perception that as we age, time flies faster and faster. So that's just the beginning of the story in this particular book. And there's a lot, there are many connections in the story, so I've reduced them to 3 takeaways. The number one takeaway is that 2 obviously different perceptions, and I put this in the quotation marks, different perceptions, time, the perception of time, and the perception of beauty, are in fact due to the same physics, that is, to the same design of the human animal. So that's the first. The design is the following. Time is the perception of change in the observed image. The eyes are in fact moving abruptly in a very abrupt, very fast, high-frequency jolts called saccade. And what is transmitted from the retina to the brain is, in fact, the change, if you want, the surprise in the new image that has just taken shape. And so it's a scanning. The eyes are scanning. And the time interval between these, let's call them clicks, is increasing during a lifetime. In the beginning, we are, of course, growing. The body is growing, so the distance traveled by these signals is increasing as the body length scale increases. And in the same direction of aging, the speed of anything that flows through channels in the human body is decreasing because of many, many reasons. Degradation is one. There are other effects. The movement of any muscle is actually decreasing in frequency as the body grows, but also as the body ages. The sum of all of that is that from sunrise to sunset, as we age, the brain receives fewer images, but the brain is trained in infancy to receive many, many such impressions. So that is why, as we age, when sunset comes, we have the feeling that the sunset has arrived too soon. The sunset, or tomorrow, or the next Christmas, or the next decade. So that's the perception of time flies coming from physics. Scanning, the one that I just described, has another effect on us. It is a scanning that occurs with basically two eyes. Well, we know the two eyes, but imagine the scanner at the grocery store, which has only one eye. If there were two eyes aligned just like the eyes of the well, most common animal from man to dog and cat, the field of vision is elongated. Let's call it looking more like a business card. Uh, the long dimension aligned with the horizontal. Why? Because the field of vision is about the world. The world is flat as we look at it, and the speed of scanning in the horizontal direction, because there are two eyes doing the scanning, is 50% greater than in the vertical direction. And this is why the area, the field of vision, is scanned the fastest if the image has the shape of the business card, or the credit card, or the cinema screen, or the flag of every nation on the globe. In other words, the ability to perceive an image faster is beneficial to human life, to human movement, to safety. Well, basically, to getting the message to get out of the way of danger, to find mate, and all of that. So, scanning faster is good for animal movement, which is also known as life. And so that is the connection with the constructor law. Everything else about us is about what I just said. It is a design of how to move not only faster and more economically, but also more safely on for longer duration in time, meaning a longer lifetime on the landscape. So I've just ended with the first takeaway, meaning that time and beauty, seemingly very, very different, are in fact perceptions that come from scanning. Mm-hmm. And that takes me to the second takeaway. This is an important step, because before my work, perceptions of this type, time and beauty, were categorized as intangibles, not belonging in physics. Well, they're actually physics, just like other intangibles. You brought up the urge to have freedom, the urge to organize, the urge to have wealth, also the urge to live with others, for example, in the city or in an organization, also known as hierarchy. So all these things, which are actually flow configurations, are from the perception of time all the way to hierarchy, are fingerprints of the natural tendency known as the constructor law, in this case, in the human design. But I'm quite sure now that I think that the tendency universal, that the cat and the dog have similar feelings, and of course similar urges and objectives, and the sources of not only pleasure but also longer life. The third takeaway is that I come back to the beginning. The perception that time accelerates is definitely worrisome as the individual becomes older and older. Running out of time is not a good feeling to have, because there are so many things to do, especially in the mind of a creative person, and that leads to the challenge to slow down the speed of time. And I've experimented with my own solution to this challenge. I did that during the pandemic. Because actually I had more freedom during the pandemic. The solution is to impress your own brain with more changes from sunrise to sunset. That is to get away from the routine, to make the effort to do different things. To yes, if you're a creative person, to change the problem that you're solving, or to change the painting that you've been finessing for about 3 months to do new things and learn a new language, whatever. Take a trip in a direction, meaning to the next town where you've never been. Many things that take you away from the routine and certainly get you off that couch. And so that is the let's call it exercise or training that you should push yourself through. You know, if you want to have the impression, actually it works, to have the impression that sunset is not arriving sooner than it should.
Well, let's rewind back to one of the things you said at the very beginning, how with time, the perception of time will change as you go throughout your life. And that's really, I think, the context you're referring to as when you're younger to when you're older. And it's interesting, Dr. Bejan, because when you see the disparities between the older generations and the younger generations, I mean, one can almost go back to this underlying idea of time and that shared time. While we all have the same amount of hours in the day, some of us have had more of those hours collectively in our lived experiences. And because of that, the perceptions of things have changed. And I would love if you could maybe dig into a little bit as we go through life and how we see those changes take place. What are you identifying are the main areas that people will actually change? Is it more in the way they approach things in life? Is it the way that they approach leisure, or is it the way they approach issues, or is it a combination of the three?
Well, I ended. That was my third takeaway. The advice to any person is to get away from the routine. But I come back to the way you started. Basically, the perception of time, which is belongs to prehistoric humans, is not about looking at the clock. Time, the word, stands for perceived change. So change, after change, is the so-called time, or the confidence that the observer, animal or human, has in the fact that now is different than before, or that next will be different than now. So these words, by the way, we go back to the beginning of language. Words such as before, now, next, or past and future. These are words that and the end of evolution of language call for one word to summarize all these impressions, namely time. And then the instruments came basically in antiquity, from the Egyptians all the way to us, and that's the and it is the instruments, the clocks, that tend to confuse the discussion. And by the way, this is the clocks are the reason why time in physics is not the kind of time you and I are discussing now. Okay, so the fact that time appears to fly faster prompted me to summarize it with this metaphor. Time flies faster on a wing with the two engines. Mm-hmm. Engine number one, when we grow in size, that is when time flies faster. Number two, when we age. The adults, and of course the aging, are perceiving the number two engine. The young are perceiving only the number one engine, but only if they have the tendency to question what they perceive. And this brings us back to our previous discussion, the importance of questioning what we perceive, questioning what we see, what we hear, what we read. Questioning everything from advice that's good advice to indoctrination. So questioning is what opens the eyes of the young to what is really going on. And early age, one of the most difficult to detect, in my own experience, was the fact that time was accelerating. I was lucky to make this discovery when I was in the middle school. It occurred to me that the hour of in the classroom was not taking as long as in elementary school. And then, of course, I paid attention. And in high school, the hour was even shorter. And then, as a basketball player, I paid attention again, and the duration of the match was getting shorter and shorter, which meant, of course, that I had to become better in order to do something during the that's right, shorter and shorter period of time. And I had a coach who was, in fact, drawing attention to the fact that time flies. So I had this click in my mind for several decades until I was no longer young, which was basically about 3 years ago. And I decided to connect the dots and offer this explanation of physics. Coincidentally, a few years earlier, I had figured out already why we are attracted to shapes that are like the business card. In fact, I like to look at art in all the art galleries. Most of the famous paintings are shaped just like these things behind my head. Why? Because they're being scanned the fastest, and the wall is a finite area, number one, but also the time of the observer is finite as well, or the life of the spectator. And but it's the same physics. So coincidences that come from physics are extremely important. All of a sudden, the so-called intangibles, through my work, belong in physics. And these are just two. I mentioned the other ones, starting with freedom and ending with the urge to organize in the case of people. And also, for those who are interested in my day job, which is that of engineering science, the baby of that is actually design, making configurations that are with purpose, with usefulness. Well, I'm now even happier in this domain because I'm teaching my students how to do design with beauty, number one. Also with time, meaning more time at the disposal of the thinker. In other words, time filled with excitement, not boredom, with perspective, with prospective, and certainly with usefulness. And the bottom line, given the fact that this discussion is also the result of the pandemic, is that the story, or if you want, the lesson that comes from this book, is that it is worth reading, or it's worth picking up the book during the next pandemic. That's right. In other words, believe it or not, there's at least one positive thing that came from this gift that you know where it came from.
So let's talk about looking at that pandemic, right? Because for the good that came from this pandemic, where it did give you the opportunity to dig into things like this, and also to maybe take a step back, we did see a lot of people, and I've said it many a time in the show, that pandemic time, it's you can't really, COVID time, it just flies by. And I think we saw this happen a lot over the past 2 years, where time just kind of either it didn't feel like it was moving, or to the contrary, it went by like warp speed. So as we're coming out of the past 2 years, Dr. Bejan, and to your point, as we're preparing for the next one, which inevitably will be coming down the pike at some point, what would be a plan of action for somebody to really appreciate? And you gave us the tools, the things that do, looking at learning a new language or challenging yourself with, reading a new book, whatever it may be. But what are things that we can do right now to appreciate the time that we have, but also around us, the beauty that's there, in better, I guess, enjoying the overall experience that is life?
Well, look, I will answer that shortly. First, you began with the pandemic. The first impression people communicated, especially on the web during the first week of the pandemic, during the lockdown, was that time had to slow down. Of course, it slowed down because it was a huge change in the lives of everyone, and they talked about it. In fact, I had the reporters calling me to explain why this sudden change in impression. And then about 1 or 2 weeks later, time accelerated again. Why? Because the previously surprised population had discovered a new routine, a new boring way of life. So that's right. So they have brought the office back into their homes, and they were basically looking at the screen, beginning, technologically advanced couch potatoes. So that is what happened then. You asked me what can we do in the future. Well, I did say that the technique of slowing down the time or lengthening one's creative life during the day is to do new things.
Yep.
This is a great discussion now because it takes me in the direction of our most recent discussions. How can you get into one new thing after a new thing? You can do that if you have freedom to change, the audacity to exercise your freedom to discard this or try this or buy this or you get the idea. If you are also freedom to move, yes, freedom to move, freedom to pose a new question, freedom to throw a punch if somebody is insulting you. In other words, there is a huge bag of benefits that comes from having freedom to make changes. And in this particular discussion, the good thing is the impression that your own life during one day or 1 week has taken longer than otherwise, you see. And so in the creative realm, that is extremely important. Imagine you're a composer. One thing is to have peace and quiet, which, by the way, also comes from freedom. But another one is to have a mind that's how should I say, at ease and natural, or like in that line from Muhammad Ali, dance like a butterfly and sting like a bee. That is the sound of the music I'm trying to compose right now for you.
It's important for us to, I think, take a step back to and appreciate the time. And maybe this is one thing as we're going towards the tail end of the conversation, is that we can do the new things and we can try the new things, but I think it's also important. I'd love to, as we go towards the end here, focus on appreciating the time. And I think sometimes we are, to your point, so focused on what's next. And then when you get to the end of life or whatever it may be, and you realize that what next might not be coming, it is important to appreciate what happened. And I think right now we're really seeing, after past 2 years of relationships being fractured, families being torn apart, or not being allowed to see each other, that we're really starting, I'm hoping, to appreciate the importance of not just the time that's to be had, but the time that we have had. So with that being said, obviously, Dr. Bejan, we want to make sure that folks can go ahead and buy this brand new phenomenal book, which, correct me if I'm wrong, it's actually coming out today, which is, as we're recording, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way, Dr. Bejan. So the book, again, Time and Beauty, Why Time Flies and Beauty Never Dies. Where can folks go ahead and find that, Dr. Bejan?
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. And please show them the book cover.
Yes, we certainly will. And I say we can find it on Amazon too, by the way, folks. And here's what we're going to do. We'll make it easy for you. All you have to do is click the artwork in your podcast catcher. It'll bring you right to today's episode, where you can find not only the past few episodes of where Dr. Bejan has joined us talking about, yes, questioning everything. And by the way, freedom is nature. Nice water bottle you have there. And also, it's important for us to make sure that we give people an opportunity to go ahead and purchase this new book, which is available on Amazon. So link there in the show notes, as well as Dr. Bejan's social media links and bio. But with that being said, Dr. Bejan, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us once again on the Brian Nichols Show. And folks, again, if you enjoy the episode, please do us a favor. Make sure you give it a share. And when you do, give yours truly a tag at B Nichols Liberty. But with that being said, it's Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Dr. Adrian Bejan. We'll see you tomorrow.